Gospel recordings in little-known languages, produced by Global Recordings, are a great tool for new Christians and missionaries around the world, such as Dan Haynes. The Lord has opened many doors for Dan and Marcia Haynes and others to share the gospel in river villages near Niamey, the capital of Niger. Dan's ministry began several years ago when they surveyed the area by airplane to find villages without easy road access. They used a jet ski to make initial contacts. They later found roads to use when the river was too low or the jet ski was too small for the load. They've used Look, Listen, and Live series Book 1 extensively because it was translated and recorded in the Zarma dialect. People can listen to Bible stories in their own language as they view matching pictures on a large flip chart or in a small booklet. They began meeting at the house of the village chief. Dan was accompanied occasionally by one of the missionary kids in Niamey. He played his harmonica and taught using the large Look, Listen, and Live picture book. Their first weekly study lasted over a year and included students who were members of the village council. At the conclusion of the Old Testament study, each one received a gospel player and an SD card of the Zarma lessons. The man in white robes offered the use of his land for Dan to build an open metal hangar for their meetings. About 18 months ago, Muslim priests increased opposition to the presence of the American missionary. They threatened to burn down the house of a local family who was letting Christians use their property, and to destroy the metal hangar they built for meetings. This caused Dan to shift his strategy. Dan had been mentoring a national believer named David, using him as a translator first, then gradually letting him teach on his own. David then began carrying the full teaching responsibilities. He continues to teach in these villages by himself, because the white man's presence was a hindrance that caused added persecution for those who attended the classes. There are adults who've professed Christ and a host of children who are eager to learn. Each adult who attended faithfully received a radio player and a Look, Listen, and Live Beginning with God booklet. Leaders were chosen to share use of the player with the youth. They've given out dozens of players with the lessons on SD cards, accompanied by Look, Listen, and Live picture booklets. At least 300 booklets have been distributed among students who have access to a player. Here is another village which received booklets and players. Besides the village work, they've used the Look, Listen, and Live series with booklets in at least 3 other Bible studies in Niamey. When Dan Haynes retired from full-time work in Niger, over 300 people among their closer circle of friends in the city received a farewell gift, a player and a Look, Listen, and Live 1 booklet. These were all accepted with so much enthusiasm that many others asked for the same thing. They were generous with the booklets, encouraging recipients to listen to a friend's flavor while looking at the pictures. 300 more booklets are on the way to Niger at this time for another distribution. The recordings are a great tool to help illiterate village people gain a better understanding of the gospel. Only eternity will reveal the full story of Muslims turning to Christ in these villages, where the gospel of grace had never been faithfully taught nor understood. You can hear or download 43 languages and dialects which are spoken in Niger, including Zarma. Find them on the web at fivefish.mobi, or use the Fivefish app on your smartphone or tablet. You can find 6,400 languages from around the world on Fivefish, all for free.